So you served from September of 1940.
No, I think I was actually inducted in October. Day, I don't know, 27th maybe, because my discharge was effective on November 30th of 1946, and I was in the service for 13 months and 4 days.
What was it like when you first went in?
When I first went into service?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it was like basic training in Little Rock, Arkansas, Camp Joseph T. Robinson, and they said that about all of the basic training bases, that it was the only place on earth that you could stand knee deep in the mud with the dust blowing in your eyes.
I can't imagine that. That sounds like a good Army base.
But because it was, the war had already ended, basic training at that time had been 6 months, and I think I was there 3 months. I was sworn in at Fort Sheridan in Chicago, Illinois, and that was my first experience in the Army was at detail unloading baggage from guys that had been over there as much as 5 and 6 years. Started before the war. What a bunch. So I had some ideas that what might happen to me, but that was my first detail, was unloading baggage cars for them guys, and they come in off the train, and they had a tavern or a PX or something right there and the train was right there, and these guys come in and sit down and started celebrating. Heard some interesting language. And a lot of stories, because we was unloading the baggage, but it didn't take that long, and we got this, just talk with them guys as we was walking around and sit down and talk with some of them. And then I went from Fort Sheridan to Little Rock on a milk train, I guess.
What's a milk train?
We got on that train at 6 o'clock at night, and I don't think we got to Little Rock until middle of the morning the next day. Stopped at every station on the train, and the seats in them passenger cars on that train were wrought iron standards with wooden slats like a park bench. Rough ride, I'll tell you. And then after basic training, I come home in January in a 12-day delay en route, they called it, and went to Fort Kearns, Utah, Camp Kearns, and what was it? Or the Colorado Eagle, I think they call that train. And that was a little better train, and I remember the car we was in had a dial up there. It was a speedometer. They would sometimes touch 92 miles an hour. They had speed trains back then, but after the tracks went bad and stuff, they've slowed them down now. They don't go that fast anymore. And like I say, I went from Camp Kearns to the 101st Weather Group headquarters in a hotel right on Market Street in San Francisco, and was in the Air Force and weather. And this is one of the observances I made, that after I got out of the infantry and was attached to the Air Force, every train, I rode everywhere on trains, but it was always Pullman. A lot better trains and sleeping quarters.
Air Force, better quality of life.
I went from San Francisco to Davis Monthan Field, and first I went to San Bernardino Marchfield, and that's where I did the weather observer map plotting and stuff. And then I was only there for a couple of months, and then we went to Tucson, Camp David Monson or something like that. It's still there. When I was there, there was 50 people on the base. During the war, there had been something like 50,000. Big base with just a few people on it. And that's where we took the training for the weather balloon, the radio sound. And an observance there was when I got off the train about 1 o'clock in the morning. About this time of the year, maybe just the end of March, the first thing that struck me was the smell of the air. The cactus were all in bloom. It was still winter here, but out there it was already really a nice atmosphere. I like Tucson, but and then I went from there back up to that Edwards Air Force Base, which was Muroc Army Air Base, and got put in that radio sound station and sent up the blues, and spent the rest of my time there. And I was shipped from there to Sacramento, and that's where I was discharged at McClellan, I think it was, and got home by train to Grand Rapids, and I could wait until the next morning and come home, and that was on November 14th. And I could have come home the next day on the train, but I decided I just walked from the station out to the main road and stuck up my thumb, and back those days, first car, away you go. I think I got home, I got in with a guy that dropped me off at Howard City, and I don't know if they was both, I don't think either one of them were veterans. I think they were just guys, and that one guy drove about 80 miles an hour. I think I got home from Grand Rapids hitchhiking as quick as you can drive it today. No, really, because then we had a lot of side roads, you know, and the expressway now you can make it more, but I think I stuck my thumb out at 6 o'clock, and I was home about 8:45.
Wow. It's a good time. A lot better than waiting the whole day to catch a train.
Now you get out and try to hitchhike, and 100 cars will go by.
Where did you go after you got home?
Huh?
Where did you go after you got home?
I said hello to Ma and got in the car and went to Boardman to a dance.
No
I
way.
didn't even know when he walked into that place. I wasn't dating him before he went in. Well, a while afterwards, actually.
What was your
But
first impression?
my first reaction was, geez, Alice's brother is a handsome guy. He had his uniform.
Went to dance that night, and the next morning I got up, and two of my friends, we used to be the Three Musketeers. Marlon Gardner, he had been in the Army, he'd been in the Navy, and Eldon Gearing was rheumatic fever as a kid and never went to service. But we went deer hunting, and I'm up north of Boardman there and hunting, and we got in the car and headed back to town. I guess it was at lunchtime, and back those days, at noon you went someplace and ate dinner or lunch, and I seen this old guy walking down the road ahead of me, and I knew what was it. My grandfather. He was hiking down the road, and I pulled up beside him. You want to ride? He didn't know I was home.
What a great way to let him know. How'd he react?
What's that?
How did he react?
How did he react? Oh, he took his pipe out of his mouth, said hello, and got in.
About time.
Man, I've been around a long time. He was a Spanish-American War veteran. And I got my great-great-great-grandfather back for, I think on my mother's side, was born the same year, and I got stuff from my father's side where my great-great-grandfather on my father's side was born, I think they was born the same year. I don't know where Corporal James McTaggart was a officer in the British Army in the Revolutionary War. And the same generation, my grandfather, John Hager, was a soldier in the Revolution, the Americans. I never got the chance to tease my folks about the families coming from different sides of it. And after the Revolutionary War, my mother's side, the McTaggart family, moved from New England someplace to Ontario. They went into Canada, and my great-grandfather, four times, whatever, was born in 1754, and I think he died at like 34 years old from complications, I guess, from injuries during the war, and but he had, I think, five children, and one of his sons was named Gardner after his commander. I think Captain Gardner was the leader of his outfit, and so he named his son Gardner Hager, and there's been easy to trace the generation in the History Channel because there's been a Gardner Hager every generation. My great-great-grandfather was Gardner Hager, and or great-great-great, and the great-great-grandfather was Gardner P. Hager, and my grandfather was Gardner C. Hager, and my kid brother is Gardner Hager. And that's one of the things that I'm different than everybody else. I grew up on the farm. I did everything either with my dad or alone, and I never had to have a buddy to do anything. If I wanted to do something, I did it, you know, and I had good friends too, but our nearest neighbors that I considered my brothers, and they had 4 boys. And the one, Martin, was the best man at our wedding, and I've known him since the first grade.
All right, so now I get to ask.
And he just...
I got to ask about the 2 of you guys.
About what?
About you 2. You can't go from you saw at a dance till you got married. There's got to be something in the middle.
Well, that happened, I guess, just this last New Year's Eve. It happened 65 years ago. What was that? That would have been a 14th of November, and she seen me at the dance, but I think I met her at another dance on New Year's Eve in 1946 after I was home from the service and in Kalkaska. And the next New Year's Eve we got married.
Did she like you at first?
What's that?
Did she like you when you first asked her?
I guess.
Well, what's your side?
What's my side?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I did.
No.
Like him.
Let me quickly ask this. Is there something that both of you would tell soldiers and their families, the spouses that are serving today, a piece of advice about being a military family or being in support of someone who served?
I don't know. I can't say enough about. I didn't join the service. I was drafted, and they had a thing back then when you got in the Army. They had a motto: "Don't ever volunteer for nothing."
That's still the model. Don't volunteer.
Because they played tricks on you, you know. And
Nice looking.
they had different names for KP, and you know, and make it sound interesting and get somebody to volunteer for it. But be proud, and there's nothing like it. I mean, the Constitution, they want to make it a living document now that they can keep changing to fit what their agenda is. But them people that wrote the Constitution knew what they was doing, and the soldiers are doing a good job of protecting the Constitution, and all of our politicians take an oath when they're sworn into office to protect the Constitution from all things foreign and domestic, and then they don't.
Are you telling soldiers to keep doing their job? Tell soldiers to keep doing their job.
Yes,
right?
And be proud of it.
Bye.